Welcome to the Shorten Anime channel. Today we'll dive into the latest episode of The Great Ruler. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. The Great Ruler Season 1 Episode 52. During the next few days, Mu Chen spent all his time fully recovering himself. In a few days, it was time to head back to the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. According to Mr. Hao, there will be a true examination when they enter the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. Comparatively, it seemed that this examination was not on the same level as the Northern Spiritual Academy's entry competition. This was because the opponents this time around were not limited to a tiny group from the Northern Spiritual Academy, but instead consisted of genius from various locations, far and wide. Moreover, there would also be some monsters that passed through the spiritual road. It would not be a simple matter to stand out during the examination. Thus, Mu Chen must recover completely before that day arrives. Fortunately, Mu Chen did not meet many obstacles during his recovery. In just 3 days, the dim spiritual energy light wheel within his aura sea was once again starting to emit light. Furthermore, its spiritual energy density was many times more powerful than before. It was evident that the battle and heavy injuries were actually beneficial to Mu Chen. Although the spiritual energy within the spiritual wheel had become denser, there was still no feeling of advancement. However, Mu Chen was not disappointed. If he thought it was this simple to advance to the spirit stage, wouldn't he truly be underestimating this level? Even though his spiritual energy did not show any significant signs of breakthrough, Mu Chen obtained an unexpected harvest. He detected that the amount of spiritual seals had finally broken through to 21 seals. Breaking through from 20 seals to 21 seals was a qualitative advancement. This was because by breaking through this level, it meant that Mu Chen possessed a Rank 2 Spiritual Array Master's strength. To a certain extent, a Rank 2 Spiritual Array Master was already comparable to a Spirit Stage powerhouse. Originally, Mu Chen thought that it would take at least a month before he could accomplish this step. But who would have imagined that the battle that had left his body in ruins would provide such a benefit to him? Furthermore, with this hidden card, Mu Chen finally felt a bit of confidence towards the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy's true examination. Moreover, after Mu Chen broke through to a Rank 2 Spiritual Array Master, the amount of spiritual seals he could condense increased significantly. In just 2 short days, the amount of spiritual seals he could condense had reached a staggering 26 seals. Moreover, as time passed, the amount would gradually keep increasing. Although the battle brought numerous benefits to Mu Chen, it also caused a bit of trouble for him. The trouble was that his father kept insisting that he reveal and explain the source of the sudden power boost from the day of his battle. Mu Chen knew that Mu Feng only asked him because he was worried. After all, that power was far too strong. With Mu Chen's strength, it was evident that he could not control it completely. At first, Mu Chen did not want to talk about this matter because he was afraid that Mu Feng would just become more worried. After all, even if Mu Feng knew about it, it was impossible for him to drag the 9 Netherbird out of his body and would only cause both of them to develop a concern for no reason. However, the situation with the 9 Netherbird had changed. Although the 9 Netherbird was still cold, its hostile attitude had softened a lot, and it would not attack him in secret. Therefore, Mu Chen didn't need to worry about mentioning it to Mu Feng. Therefore, Mu Chen told the truth to Mu Feng. After his explanation, he noticed Mu Feng entering a daze suddenly. After a while, the latter gradually recovered from the shock and stared strangely at Mu Chen. Despite the significant effort the Lu territory and Mu territory put into obtaining the highly coveted 9 Netherbird from the Black Eerie Swamp, they had both failed. Who would have imagined that during their time in the Black Eerie Swamp, the 9 Netherbird would have actually taken refuge inside of Mu Chen's body on its own? Under Mu Feng's gaze, Mu Chen could only shrug helplessly. He didn't know why this had happened either. Perhaps this could only be explained as fate. After Mu Feng's look of surprise lasted a while, he gradually got over the shock. However, he immediately frowned. As a spirit stage powerhouse, he had once ingested a heaven-ranked spiritual beast's soul essence. He naturally knew how rebellious a spiritual beast of that level could be. Back in those days, he had gone through great pains in order to ingest the Dragonfire Bird. Yet the 9 Netherbird within Mu Chen's body was many times stronger than the Dragonfire Bird. Considering Mu Chen's strength, Mu Feng could not determine whether it was good or bad for him to host such a vicious beast within his body. Seeing that Mu Feng was concerned, Mu Chen consoled him for a while. Only after he explained the current status of his relationship with the 9 Netherbird did Mu Feng relax a bit. However, Mu Feng still told him to remain vigilant. A spiritual beast of that level had an intelligence that was not inferior to that of a human. Also, given the 9 Netherbirds' previous schemes, Mu Feng did not hold any doubts about its viciousness. That thing was definitely an extremely dangerous existence. Hearing this, Mu Chen replied with a smile. Time flew by quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was the day before his departure. In the quiet courtyard, Mu Chen was currently cultivating with his eyes closed when he heard familiar footsteps approaching. He opened his eyes and noticed Mu Feng entering the courtyard. Dad! Mu Chen directed a smile at Mu Feng as he spoke. Mu Feng walked up next to Mu Chen and rubbed the latter's head. A hint of reluctance and affection emerged in his eyes as he smiled. Brat, you'll be leaving tomorrow. This time, you probably won't be able to come back for a while. You should properly cultivate in the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. Even though there are geniuses everywhere over there, I won't allow you to disgrace me. Mu Chen could see the reluctance within Mu Feng's eyes, and his heart suddenly felt a hint of warmth. He smiled and replied, Dad, just relax. Your son isn't someone who can be easily bullied. Mu Feng was slightly depressed. Over these years, he had brought up Mu Chen alone. Although Mu Chen was always sensible, Mu Feng could have always helped him when he was in trouble in the Northern Spiritual Realm. But once he left the Northern Spiritual Realm and entered the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy, he would not be able to give any protection to Mu Chen. You'll have to leave tomorrow. Your father has nothing to give you. However, I've heard that you've advanced to a Rank 2 Spiritual Array Master, so I've been searching for diagram arrays during the past 2 days. Mu Feng directed a smile to Mu Chen and gripped his hand tightly. Then a glowing scroll emerged within his hand. This is a Rank 2 diagram array. It should be of use to you. Mu Chen was stunned and touched as he immediately accepted the glowing scroll. In the Northern Spiritual Realm, a Rank 2 diagram array was considered rare. Mu Feng must have gone to extraordinary lengths in order to find this diagram array. No wonder he was busy during the past 2 days. He had clearly been spending his spare time for this reason. Thanks, Dad. Mu Chen placed the diagram array within the mustard seed bracelet. Although he had become a Rank 2 Spiritual Array Master, he did not have any Rank 2 diagram arrays. Although he had the Butchering Demonic Lotus Spiritual Array, which was comparable to a Rank 3 Spiritual Array, Mu Chen could not arrange it unless he borrowed the 9 Netherbirds' strength. Therefore, right now, he urgently needed this Rank 2 diagram array. Mu Chen pondered before he asked, Dad, after I leave, managing the Mu territory will be all up to you. Is it truly fine that you did not get rid of the Lu territory? He probably would have to leave the Northern Spiritual Realm for quite a long period of time. Naturally, he wanted Mu Feng to be safe here. Right now, the Liu territory is greatly weakened and is nothing to be feared. Mu Feng smiled. Moreover, you shouldn't underestimate your father. This time, I gained some inspiration and can vaguely feel the threshold of a heavenly fusion stage. If I were to train for a while, I should be able to advance to the heavenly fusion stage. Oh! A hint of surprise emerged in Mu Chen's eyes. If Mu Feng successfully advanced to the heavenly fusion stage, nobody would dare offend him in the Northern Spiritual Realm, and the Mu territory would be completely stable as well. Ha 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 ha. You should rest well today. I'll send you to the Northern Spiritual Academy tomorrow. Mu Feng smiled proudly and patted Mu Chen's shoulders before he left. Mu Chen stared at Mu Feng's broad back. He suddenly felt that his mouth was slightly blocked and could only gently mutter, Dad, remember the promise that I said to you. There will come a day when I bring Mother back here. Our family will definitely be reunited. Mu Feng's silhouette suddenly stopped at the entrance of the courtyard. He lifted his head and sighed. His eyes were slightly wet, and he slowly nodded his head. Brat, just cultivate properly. Your father will wait for that day. In the early morning of the following day, Mu Chen had gotten up early and left his room. He noticed that Mu Feng and Zhou Ye were waiting for him outside. Zhou Ye escorted Mu Feng and Mu Chen out of the Mu estate before he rubbed Mu Chen's hair. Little Mu, good luck. I hope that you can surprise Uncle Zhou the next time you come back to the Northern Spiritual Realm, he said with some emotion. Mu Chen smiled as he nodded to Zhou. Yeah, relax, Uncle Zhou. Instead, shouldn't you worry about finding a wife? Damn brat. Zhou Ye could not help but laugh. Let's go. Mu Feng waved his hand and took the lead towards the transfer spiritual array within the Mu city. Mu Feng waved at Zhou Ye before he quickly followed. As the two passed through the Mu city, numerous gazes were projected over towards them. Most of the gazes were fixed at Mu Chen's body and curiosity and awe were within them. It was evident that Mu Chen had become a well-known figure. After the battle above the Nine Territory meeting, the fame had even surpassed Mu Feng and the other territory lords. Right now, your name is even more dazzling than mine. Mu Feng laughed as he noticed the surroundings' gazes. Hearing this, Mu Chen also smiled. When I return, I will use my own strength to obtain these gazes. Daring and resolute, I'll wait for that to happen. Mu Feng smiled as he stepped onto the transfer spiritual array, while Mu Chen quickly followed. Then Mu Feng quickly waved his sleeves, and a light emerged as spiritual energy surged out. Their figures quickly vanished under countless estranged gazes. Currently, the spacious training ground of the Northern Spiritual Academy was crowded with Northern Spiritual Academy students. All of them were gazing enviously at the stage. At that location, there were 5 giant arrays floating in thin air that emitted a vague yet powerful pulse of spiritual energy. It is said that these light arrays were transfer spiritual arrays, leading to the 5 great academies. After passing through them, one would be able to enter any of the holy grounds that they'd wished for all over these years. However, these people currently did not have the qualifications. At the training grounds, Tang Qianer, Hong Ling, and Mo Ling had already arrived. Even Liu Mubai was present at the scene. However, he did not have the arrogance he had had previously. Instead, his face was slightly pale and was covered with a dejected expression. It was obvious that he had suffered a heavy blow mentally. Mu Chen's coming! A commotion of noise suddenly rang out outside of the training grounds, and numerous fiery gazes immediately turned away from the training grounds. Then they noticed a familiar boy and a tall, burly figure slowly walking in from the training ground entrance. As they stared at the boy's figure, countless Northern Spiritual Academy students lowered their voice. In their eyes, curiosity and awe emerged. During this period of time, the news about Mu Chen slaying Lu Territory's Lu Jingshan had spread throughout the entire Northern Spiritual Realm. To them, the heavenly fusion stage was too dazzling. They could not measure up to the power that someone of that level would possess. But no matter what, it must be stronger than Teacher Mo, Teacher Shi, and even the principal, right? And a powerhouse of that level was actually killed by Mu Chen? Just how terrifying, then, was he? Under numerous astonished gazes, Mu Chen entered the stage and cupped his hands in salute towards Teacher Mo, Teacher Shi, Principal Xiao, and Mr. Hao as he said, "My apologies, I arrived late." "It's fine. You're not considered late." Teacher Mo smiled. The eyes he used to look at Mu Chen were quite peculiar. Just after he heard of this event, even he himself felt tremendous shock. Now that he met with Mu Chen again, a mysterious feeling emerged within his heart. This boy had too many secrets. "Oh ho ho, we still have to modulate the transfer spiritual array for a while, so you'll have to wait for a bit." Principal Xiao waved his hands and replied with a smile. Mu Chen nodded and stood beside Tang Qianer. At this moment, Chen Fan and the others were staring at him strangely. This caused Mu Chen to glance at them helplessly. "Hey, hey, hey." Seeing Mu Chen look over at them, Chen Fan and the others let out a hollow laugh. They felt slightly unnatural. After all, they used to be able to joke around with Mu Chen, but now they could feel that they weren't at the same level. As he noticed this, Mu Chen did nothing to explain the situation to them. Instead, it was Tang Qianer who glanced over and asked, "Are your injuries all healed?" Mu Chen nodded and smiled. "With Sister Qianer taking care of me, it would be difficult for them not to heal." Hearing this, Tang Qianer let out a sweet smile before she crooned, "You've only spoken nicely right before we depart. How insincere." Mu Chen felt completely helpless. When facing a girl's unreasonable expectations, it was best to remain silent. "You should look at Liu Mubai. Right now, he looks at you as if he had seen a ghost." Tang Qianer glanced across to the opposite side as she muttered. Mu Chen's gaze followed and intersected with Liu Mubai's gaze. The latter quickly turned his head away. Currently, his appearance had none of the former prestige of someone who had previously been the #1 individual of the Northern Spiritual Academy. Mu Chen calmly retracted his gaze in order to not stare at Liu Mubai as if he had won against someone. During the path of cultivation, he would meet enemies one by one. If he wanted to improve, he would have to constantly look towards the future and review the past. Only then he would be able to improve slowly. Liu Mubai was considered to be outstanding. However, he was not worthy for Mu Chen to treat him as an unforgettable rival. "All of you should listen up." From the side, Mr. Hao suddenly spoke to the crowd. "I have mentioned this to you before. Although you have passed the Northern Spiritual Academy's examination, it has only granted you the opportunity to enter the 5 Great Academies. It does not mean that you are already regarded as a student in the 5 Great Academies. The 5 Great Academies will test all of you themselves. That will be the true test of the 5 Great Academies. If you pass, you will become a student within the 5 Great Academies and have a promising future. However, if you fail to pass, we will not send you back, but you will not be able to enter the 5 Great Academies anymore. Instead, we will send you to other major spiritual academies. Therefore, each one of you will have to work hard to become a true student of the 5 Great Academies. Yes! Hearing this, Mu Chen and the others' faces turned serious. The Great Thousand World was endless and vast. Nobody could detect the ends of it. The 100 spirit heavens that the Northern Spiritual Realm belonged to was only considered to be a speck of sand within a desert. It was completely insignificant. The area outside of the 100 spirit heavens was known as the 100 spirit continent. In this continent, there were numerous territories that were similar to the 100 spirit heavens. Moreover, there were countless territories and continents outside of the 100 spirit heavens. If they did not use a transfer spiritual array, a powerhouse at the 3 heaven stage would not be able to travel across all the continents, even if they devoted a whole lifetime. The Great Thousand World was too mysterious and extensive. There were as many forces as there were stars in the sky. Among these stars, the 5 Great Academies were considered to be bright and dazzling stars. Even within the entire Great Thousand World, they were quite well known. The geniuses from the various continents would gather at the 5 Great Academies. Therefore, it would not be easy to stand out in such a place. Mu Chen would have to use all his strength in order to pass the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy's test. As these thoughts flashed through Mu Chen's mind, he looked towards Mr. Hao and inquired, "Mr. Hao, may I know what the test will be for the 5 Great Academies?" Mr. Hao glanced at Mu Chen and shook his head. He replied, "The 5 Great Academies each have their respective test. Therefore, I am unclear about them. However, someone will receive you after you pass through the transfer spiritual array. At that time, you will come to learn more about the test." Although this wasn't useful information, Mu Chen still nodded. After some time, the 5 transfer spiritual arrays gradually emitted out an intense light. The violent spiritual energy fluctuations, which were originally there, had stabilized. "It's about there." Seeing this, Mr. Hao nodded towards Principal Xiao. Then he looked at Mu Chen and the others as he said, "Saint Spiritual Academy, please go to the 2nd transfer spiritual array from the left." Hearing this, Liu Mubai quickly stepped forward and stood within the transfer spiritual array. As he entered the transfer spiritual array, he finally regained a bit of courage. Then he stared at Mu Chen and gritted his teeth as he clenched his hands. "Mu Chen, I admit that you're powerful. However, just you wait. There will be a time when we meet again. When that happens, I will defeat you." Hearing this, Mu Chen's black eyes stared at Liu Mubai. Under his gaze, Liu Mubai's body shuddered. It seemed that he was being reminded of the terror that Mu Chen had inflicted upon his family that day within the 9-territory city. His legs and stomach felt a little weak, and he struggled to remain standing up. It was as if he had been completely traumatized by Mu Chen that time, and this trauma made him feel intense fear. "I'll welcome it anytime." Mu Chen smiled faintly. "The Saint's Spiritual Academy, huh? Jixuan is also there, right?" Compared to him, Liu Mubai was truly unworthy. "Azure Sky Spiritual Academy, please go to the 3rd transfer spiritual array from the left." Hearing Mr. Hao's instructions, Chen Fan and Huo Yun hurried forward. Their faces were filled with excitement and tension. Myriad Phoenix Spiritual Academy, the 4th transfer spiritual array. Tang Xianair bit her lips and clasped her hands. She thumped Mu Chen's chest as she said, "Good luck in the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. Although there are many geniuses there, I believe that you won't fall behind. Otherwise, I will be embarrassed to say that I know you when we meet again." "Yes, you too." Mu Chen stared at the girl in front of him. A hint of depression filled his heart due to the separation. Tang Xianair nodded and no longer spoke. She twisted her slim waist as she entered the 4th transfer spiritual array together with Hong Ling. However, her beautiful eyes remained fixed at Mu Chen. "Mu Chen, Mo Ling, the 2 of you should enter here." Mr. Hao pointed at the transfer spiritual array beside him. Mu Chen's gaze stared at Mu Feng, who had been behind him all this time. The latter smiled and nodded towards him. Then, under countless gazes, Mu Chen immediately took a deep breath and entered the transfer spiritual array without hesitation. Seeing this, Mo Ling quickly followed. "Brother Mu, good luck. Please bring glory to our Northern Spiritual Academy." Even in the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy, you must be the strongest. At the edge of the training ground, Su Ling and the others shouted out, "Please act as the advance party for us. In the future, we will come to the Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy to leech off you." The other students also yelled out. Hearing this, Mu Chen could not help but smile. He nodded towards them. "Concentrate, we're beginning the transfer," Mr. Hao said in a deep voice. He waved his sleeves and numerous light seals shot into the transfer spiritual arrays. Then a powerful light shone from the spiritual array and completely enveloped the figures within it. The powerful light gradually obscured Mu Chen's vision. He gazed at Mu Feng, who was nearby. The latter also stared at him in daze. Then a hint of loneliness emerged on his resolute face. After Mu Chen departs, he would be the only one remaining in the family. "Dad, don't worry. I will definitely bring Mother back." Mu Chen clenched his hands and muttered to himself. Then he slowly closed his eyes. Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy, I'm coming. Luo Li, I'm coming. That wraps up the content for today's episode. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel to get notifications for the next episode. For now, goodbye, and see you next time.